Hello, my name is Ida Nydelius, and this is the podcast Going to IEU. I'm here today with Iôna de Macêdo. She's the Associate Dean and Professor of the Bachelor in Communication and Digital Media here at IE. And today we're going to talk about her interesting career and how she came to IEU. Hello, Iôna.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. And yourself?
I'm really good today. Thank you.
Good.
So let's begin with, how did you take your first steps in the industry of the film?
In the film industry, actually, when I went to college, I studied communication and English literature in the U.S. And my passion was theater, live performances, right? And I thought, when I grow up, I am going to be working on stage, on real stage, but not as an actor, more producer, art director or something like that. But then more and more, this love of literature sort of blossomed, storytelling blossomed in me. And I decided that I was going to go actually do, as I graduated, do postgraduate studies in the field of literature or related. And I did, and I began studying linguistics. I was doing a PhD program in Paris when I got very sick. And this is one of those things that you don't plan in life. Mm-hmm. They just happen to you.
For sure.
And I had to spend a little over a month in a hospital bed. And I think it was the first time since I began college that I had time to think. And so I was living in Paris, doing a PhD in France, but I was not French, right? So the likelihood that I would be a professor was next to zero. And I had this sort of eureka moment when a friend of mine who worked in the entertainment business in an area that I knew nothing about.
You knew nothing about the area before?
To be honest with you, it never occurred to me that somebody sells things, because I learned how to make them, how to develop a story from an idea to a script, how to pre-produce, how to produce, how to post-produce. But after that,
what do you do with it?
What do you do with it? So this dear friend, he's my friend to this day, Takis Veremis is his name, said to me, "Kid, you have to work in distribution." I said, "What the heck is that?"
What is that?
Well, so distribution is essentially selling the rights to existing or to be made audiovisual works. So you can pre-sell a script with actors already attached to it, or you can sell the actual film or television show, right? And those babies, they have a very long life because you can sell them for a first showing, either if it's in the movie theater or on the television screen. But you have the rights and you keep on selling them over and over and over again, right? So I did, and I had no criteria I wrote my CV and I sent letters of interest to companies, and I said, "So which companies do I choose?" And he gave me a guide to the Cannes Film Festival market and said, "You choose." And I had no criteria, so I said, "I'm going to choose the pretty names of companies." And I got hired at Pandora, which is a lovely name. And it was a great school for me. And I was initially hired in the mailroom, the proverbial mailroom. I had to deliver films and marketing materials to different clients all over the world. And very soon, my boss, who didn't know why he hired me, well, why am I hiring somebody who's doing a PhD in linguistics? My only excuse was I speak a lot of languages. Mm-hmm. And I did make friends with all my clients, right? So I was delivering stuff to them, and I began asking them, "Can you send me the poster of this movie? I'm collecting them," to the Israeli guy, to the Dutch guy. And then my boss began realizing that not only could I speak languages, but that I had a lot of empathy with these people that I was sending the materials to, and why not sell?
Because you already persuaded them to give them their posters.
No, not so much about that. It's because we had a good working relationship. Uh-huh. Sometimes, sometimes it took a long time to produce an internegative. Sometimes it was very expensive. Sometimes a client couldn't pay so much money for such material, so we would wait for another client to be over with that material so that we could lend it to them, so I would bicycle it. So I always found a way to save money for them in a way. And we had a good working relationship, my clients, right? And I was very curious about what do the Israelis like to watch.
So your curiosity led you forward, and
curiosity,
eventually...
I think, is a key component for any successful professional in any path of life and career. I think that's very, very important. And I was curious. And so Christian Bourguignon, my boss at the time, the owner of the company, called me and said, okay, so I'm making you a salesperson. And I said, I can't sell a nail.
So what makes that a difference with the sales? Like, what did you go into then? Like, which kind of challenge did you encounter there?
Actually, none, because what I was doing, I was servicing the sales before. Now I'm making the sale, and I already know the clients, right? So I already know what they like. I already know the kinds of projects that they go for. So it wasn't very complicated. The only complicated part was that I had to fill out my own contracts, my terms. And so I had to sort of become a paralegal in the process. And it was very exciting, very, very exciting. I traveled a lot, and there were some challenges. For instance, I was given Italy because Italy was a cursed territory. Normally, you're given territories, right? And I would go to Italy, and people would stand me up. They would make appointments, and they would stand me up. They didn't know me, and there is a relationship of trust that you build. And then it dawned on me that if I learned Italian, I might become successful. So I went to Christian. I said, okay, I need Italian courses. And he said, how much money are you going to bring in sales? And I said, I don't know, but more than the zero that you have right now. And you know what? It was amazing. In 2 months, I was speaking reasonable Italian, and suddenly I'm talking to the secretaries and making appointments, and they think I'm so cute because I'm making such an effort. I was sort of your age. I was like 25 years old. Not much. Maybe I'm not 25, but I'm comparatively. So suddenly I was talking soccer with my buyer in Raiuno, and then the sales came. So what I think is really special about that, and I'm still very friendly with my clients from, oh my gosh, I'm not even going to say because it's so long ago. We still correspond and we still talk to each other because you kind of become a family, in independent distribution. So I learned that I used to think that sales involved not being honest, tricking people into something. Yeah. But you can be persuasive in a way that there is a give and take, in the same way that I'll try to bicycle a material to deliver to a client. Another client can buy something from me just because I really need to make that target, and there is a give and take kind of thing. And that relationship was developed that way. And then at the time, Pandora began going into production too. So they were pre-buying films. And they went through a very successful streak. In fact, just before they were building a catalog, my former boss's dream was to sell his company and buy a chateau in France and grow grapes, and he did. And I think he's still alive and he's still there.
It's a beautiful dream.
And a lot of companies do that, independent companies. They build a nice library and then they sell it to a bigger company, right? But we were in the process of building that library, and we made collectively good choices, I think. And it began with like Water for Chocolate, and then Collier came, that won an Oscar, beautiful Czech film that's currently in Amazon in Spain, commercial. Actually, I watched it the other day with my children because I had never seen it. It's from the 90s. And we were so moved that all of us cried on my bed. It was really nice. And I said, I worked on that script, which is always so moving, when today I go to London and I see a poster of a film that I worked on in a repertoire movie theater. It's very moving because part of you is in that.
For sure, it's a creative process, and you put some part of you in the play.
Correct,
Yeah.
but it's a collective process too, which is very nice as well. And that leads me to production. But before production, so one of my clients, Portuguese client, liked me so much, and they were investing into a television station. that was being created in Portugal. And back in the 90s, there were no commercial stations pretty much everywhere. As you're from Sweden, right?
Yes.
S4, Channel 4 was created in the late 80s, I believe.
Yeah, it's very new.
Yeah. And Spain and Portugal came later, 1991, 92. So the Portuguese got a license for free television, and I'm from Brazil. I think I forgot to say that, right? I'm from Brazil. I speak Portuguese, and in Portugal there were no people from the industry, and since I had some idea about selling, they thought we're going to begin with programming that's going to be essentially bought material. So why not invite Iôna to create the foreign language department and program the programs that she buys.
And what do you mean by program the programs?
Yeah, well, the buying the programs is the best part, because I was selling, right? But I was selling small packages because I was in an independent company. Now I was being brought to negotiate with all the big studios. Okay, I need volume. Television's a voracious animal, right? So it's not all about the new series on Netflix that you guys watch. Thankfully, there were grids of programming that were fixed. I mean, I don't envy anybody who programs at Netflix right now, because you guys binge on these things, and it's old after the weekend. At least we had 6 weeks for things to be, or 12, right? So essentially means that I had to buy the programming, the volume, and then decide what slots. I was given some slots during the day, and I had to put those programs or movies into those slots, which seems very easy.
But you got to think of so many factors. But it's very
complicated. Yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, I learned from great people. I mean, I have a great mentor here who had created 5 television stations. I have such respect for that man, because one almost killed me. And he had done one in Peru, he had done one in Mexico, he had done one here. He was in 4. And the one in Portugal, he was from Antena 3, and he taught me so much. Condorcet da Silva Costa, this is for you. And one of the things is that you have, it's like spending your savings carefully, right? So you have a big blockbuster, holidays, right? The movies that have great stars but didn't really became blockbusters, you sell the star in the commercials announcing the films, and you place them the night that's programming, the night that there is most audience for. So I was doing something that I had no idea about. I knew how to sell, learned how to buy, but the programming part was challenging.
So you explored a lot of different fields within the industry.
Exactly.
And also heard that you started your own Dama Filmes, your own film production.
No, wait, because we have Sony still.
Oh,
so
true. So go a little bit back. Yeah. How did you end up in Sony then?
How did I end up in Sony?
Yeah.
Okay, so I launched the television station, and I had a child in the process, which is kind of crazy to do. And my then husband was invited to a job in New York. In fact, I had the possibility of working because his company, Vivendi, was buying Universal at the time. So I could have gone to the studio earlier than I did, but I wanted to have a second child. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to take a break, because launching a television station is 24 hours, 7 days a week. The city never sleeps, TV doesn't sleep, right? So I had my second child, and just when she was 4 months old, the headhunter called me. I used to be headhunted for all kinds of crazy jobs, like head of sales for NBA. I don't know anything about basketball. I'm tall, but it doesn't go that far. But then there was this job, which was a godsend, except that the husband had a very prominent job himself, but it was a godsend job in terms of it was television production and film production. So putting together two things that I had been somewhat involved with, right? Going to Latin America, back to my continent, which I had left when I was 17 years old. So I'm coming back when I'm 34. in a time when it's really helpful to have your family around when you have 2 kids, with a pan-Latin American job. So I was to be head of television for Sony Columbia. It used to be called at the time Columbia TriStar Television. Sony rebranded afterwards, right? So, and there were 8 or 9 candidates, but none of them had those 2 things, TV and film, because normally when you start in one career, you stay in it. Very few people, my friends who, to give you an idea, the people that I hired in Portugal are still there 27 years later. I mean, on occasion for a big birthday, I go to the celebration of the big birthday. And my whole team, 5 people, are still there. So when you have a career in that, you stay in that, right? But I already had the label, startup, relock. And so, but this was the first time that I'm in the big league, right? And so I didn't know it initially when I spoke to the headhunter what it was, but it sounded like a studio. And she was very concerned about 2 things, which was really funny at the time, and I think that still happens today, that my husband, my then husband, was one of the top people in the environment and water treatment in the world at the time. So what do you do with a guy like that when you relocate a woman? And also that I was pretty much only candidate. I was the only candidate among those 8 or 9 people that spoke Portuguese and Spanish and English, and who had worked in television and film. There was one candidate who spoke Portuguese very well and Spanish as well, but he hadn't worked in film, only television. Funnily enough, he's Japanese, Nippo-American, Ryan Shiotani, who is in Singapore now as a yoga instructor. He left Discovery. I keep track of everybody. So I went through, I think, 3 times more interviews than my male peers went, because I was a woman who had just had a baby, and relocating a woman was something that they had never done. And it was very interesting to go through the whole process and know that that's what was happening, and not be able to fully address it until the day that I did. So what's the deal? Am I going to come back for a 9th interview, or are you? And they were honest about it. I mean, it was a man, and he's still my friend as well. And he said, I've never done this. What is your husband going to do there? Yeah. And I said, well, if it weren't okay for my husband, for me to be here, I wouldn't have been here, So, and you're not relocating me, you're bringing me back home. So they gave me the job.
And you're also reshaping the process.
I'm sorry?
You're also reshaping the process, being the first woman and kind of teaching them as well how to...
I wasn't the first women they relocated. They relocated women without families. I was the first woman with a family, with a husband and children that they relocated. Okay? Yeah. I had a lot of single or older colleagues who were females that were relocated. Yeah.
It's still a very important part of it.
Yeah, it is very much. I mean, I'm still known among the Sony community as the first one. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
A couple have come afterwards.
So what did you learn at Sony? Like, what are the main takeaways from that experience?
Tons of things. I had 2 experiences at Sony. They first brought me to Latin America. And so I was an adult in my own country. That was a gift that Sony gave to me. Because when you leave when you're 17 years old, you're only half-baked, right? And so suddenly I have to have all the papers to work and all the... And it was a gift in that way. And I was very lucky to be in Brazil when the film industry was blossoming. And there were all these amazing directors with a lot of energy that came from advertising that wanted to make feature films. And we had money to finance their films. And so I was very lucky to be in the right place at the right time again, and to be involved in some really remarkable trajectories, professional trajectories. That was a huge gift. Another huge gift was that my job wasn't only in Brazil, it was all over Latin America, especially in terms of television. And Europeans and North Americans have this perception that we are all the same. Latin America, very easy. So much so that one of my territories was Mexico, and there was only one direct flight from São Paulo to Mexico. So I had to go to Miami to go down to Mexico City to cover that territory until I explained to them that that could be part of North America and somebody else took care of it. Another huge gift is understanding an identity as Latin America, but from being exposed to all these countries and working with people in different countries. What makes us unique and different, and what makes us very similar in so many things. So that was really, really amazing. And then the tremendous amount of creativity, little lack of rigor, especially when it comes to very structured work, right? Like keeping up to budgets and schedules and stuff like that. But capacity to improvise, that was amazing. That was really, really amazing. So things were going very well, and then Sony was looking for someone to open an office again in film production here in Spain. So they offered me the job, and oops, I was pregnant. And they said, oh, we'll wait. So I moved to London, took a part-time sabbatical, had a baby, and then moved to Spain and began this new division, film division, which became quite successful. That we we did expand to France and Italy. So I was overseeing those 3 offices and hopping. That was fun with my the lovely woman that worked in my team in France. We used to challenge ourselves and see if we could have breakfast in Paris, lunch in Rome, and dinner in Madrid, and you can. So, or go to LA for one meeting and come back. I did. So that was my life, and it was really a fantastic time to work with amazing people. We co-produced Luca Guadagnino's, Call Me By Your Name director, who's sort of very fashionable right now. He produced his first full fiction feature film. He had done sort of a mockumentary that had a fiction component, but Melissa P was actually his first film. We worked with amazing directors who developed really, really great material. And then the recession came. And then that's when they closed the offices. The big economic recession. The Japanese kind of knew ahead of time that local language, because I only did local language films. I mean, my choice was go to LA, which I didn't. I mean, I was very committed. I've only worked with local language material
what do you mean
and
by
storytelling, non-English language.
Okay, so there'll be in Portuguese, in Spanish, and
Czech.
And Czech.
Kolya was a Czech film, Pandora, or Italian, or French, or German. Yeah.
How many languages do you speak?
Speak. 5.
5.
Yeah, and then I kind of pretend a half.
All right. That's a lot.
And so Sony had other plans, and I didn't see myself fitting in those plans, like maybe go to Russia. I don't speak Russian. Maybe go to LA. I hate driving. And I decided to stay. Because Spain is such an amazing country. Around that time, I was 2 very well-known creative people in Brazil reached out to me. They were creating a production company, and they invited me to be a partner. That was 2008, 2009. And one of them was a writer, and she had just secured the rights to the life of Paulo Coelho, the writer. And so I came on board. We created this company, Dama Filmes, and we did a couple of films. I didn't go back to Brazil again. I mean, I stayed in between, and that was a little bit complicated because it's kind of far away. But I would go to Brazil maybe 5, 6, 7 times a year. And we were trying to create bridges between the 2 continents. We launched the film. It's out there. And did a couple more. And then
What would be the biggest difference between having your own
company? Depending on the financing, on as a Blanche Dubois in Tennessee Williams, a streetcar named Desire would say, depending on the kindness of strangers is never fun. So at Sony I had financing, right, and so I had to give back a profitable property, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they gave me the money, I produced, and I had to make the money back at least and make a profit. Here, I'm raising the financing and using soft monies as well, right? Subsidies and so on. And you have to be super patient. I mean, back at a studio, it takes if you get a green light for a series or a film, it takes you the time that it takes to produce that film, 18 months. If it has a lot of special effects, maybe 2 years. For an independent film, especially if the budget is robust, it may take 5-6 years. Yeah. So, but we did it. I mean, we did a couple of them. Some of them won some prizes and stuff. And then the recession came in Brazil as well. And the company had grown, and there were some financing partners. The National Bank of Development said, you are the production expert here. You have to move back here if you want to continue. And I said, you know what? I don't think so. I love Spain. And it was a choice to live here that made me sort of forego these couple of other opportunities. And just at that time, I was already an associate professor at IE.
So how did you find your way here?
Actually, it was another coincidence. A dear friend of mine, I went to Rutgers in the U.S., and the head of the language department, she also went to Rutgers. But we didn't go at the same time. She's much younger than I am. But we became friends. She speaks Portuguese as well. She's American. And she had one of those pickles in September. When I was in college, I taught ESL to college students. And
ESL? Sorry?
ESL, English as a second language.
Okay.
So I had experience teaching. I've always taught all through. I mean, I gave master classes when I was working in Brazil. I followed master students in their projects. Even here in Spain, I was at Sony, at Carlos III. I also supervised master students in production. I've always loved teaching. I mean, that was a passion I wanted to finish a PhD and become a professor, right? And so being an associate professor here gave me that kind of outlet. It was really cool. I loved doing it.
So you began teaching here in the
Bachelor
of Communication
that's the thing.
Design.
So Jessica had somebody got sick or couldn't do a writing skills course. And it was like the second week of September, and she had nobody. And I was editing, I was mixing, actually, doing the sound mix here in Spain of my film. It was a Brazilian-Spanish co-production. And I had time, so I didn't have to go to Brazil all the time. So I said, sure, I can take it. And then, as a result, somebody from the Bachelor of Communication called me and said, we need somebody to do a course on audience research because the professor is leaving. And I said, okay. And then I did it, and then here I am.
So you're taking on the opportunities that come to you. So.
Yes, I'm open to them.
Yeah.
Not all of them. I didn't go to Russia.
That's true.
Or to LA. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you climbed your way up to become the dean of the
school. So when I arrived, the Bachelor in Communication, what used to be called BIC, was at a crossroads, and they were changing the program. And so our then dean, Begonia Gonzalez Costa, who's an amazing woman, invited adjunct and full-time professors to contribute to ideas about how to create a different program. And so somehow I found myself in that team. And we began going out to the industry and asking, so what kind of professionals do you want out of a communication? I was talking to my friends. It was kind of fun to go and talk to somebody in distribution or somebody in advertising, right? My former colleagues.
And what do they want?
They want generalists. Well, they did. That was 60 years ago. We're beginning that process again now, because you have to do it every once in a while. Things go very fast, especially in the digital ecosystem. So they wanted generalists with a strong footing on social media, knowing how to manage social media, who understood metrics and how to communicate in that space. Because especially 6 years ago, there was still a big divide, of the linear and non-linear generations. Now there are more non-linear people making their way into the linear space.
So a lot more practical skills.
No, soft skills, writing.
Uh-huh.
Everybody talked about writing, and a little bit of law as well, legal. So we picked the components, and we decided that we're going to stir away from writing as in journalism, going broader in terms of writing, more into the storytelling realm, with a certain component of writing for media as well. That we're going to go into content creation, but with a branding and marketing kind of focus. And when I took over, there were 80 students in the 4 years of the Bachelor, and now I think there are like 350 in 6 years.
They've been growing a lot.
It's growing exponentially every year, and it's very exciting and kind of gives you a little bit of a cold in ear. So that's the story.
And I found the Bachelor of Communication Digital Media here quite unique, because I had some exchange student friends my first year, and they said that the program here is much more practical and at hands, like you learn how to do it rather than just studying the theory.
That's correct. Yeah.
And
I mean, it is a kaleidoscopic kind of, because communication traditionally you have social communication that sort of takes you to journalism, right? And you have visual communication that takes you into the more visual component like graphic design, video production, and you have the corporate communication. Ours has a little bit of everything. So that the student can see, because it is a field that employs a lot, and you kind of have to be a generalist because you have to be prepared to. So when you do a campaign, like we're doing 10 projects in my 4th year course, creative project management and global challenges, we call it, but it's not global challenges, it's a development, research and development for the project management. And we have 10 clients, and one of the clients, we're coming up with creative campaigns to prevent sexually transmitted infections, right? Mm-hmm. A student can be a genius in graphic design, but if he or she doesn't know the difference between HIV, chlamydia, gonorrhea,
is a waste.
So you have to be a generalist. Mm-hmm. Another one is doing coffee in Uganda. Another one is doing consent in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. So you have to be curious, you have to be open, and you have to be a generalist.
I can see it's perfect fit for any other passion that you might have.
Correct, especially medicine, because it's another one that I had in my pocket. Every year we find a disease to work on. Last year was in the Amazon, how to communicate. We did a campaign for an NGO that works in the river populations, a poster and audio campaign about COVID. It was pretty cool too. Yeah.
And pretty moving. I bet that it will have a lot of impact as well.
It does. And what's really excited about that course is that our students get transformed, quite a few of them. We did 3 years ago, we did a children's book for Liberia. That was our campaign on to prevent young girls dropping out, right, because of menstruation. So we did a very lovely book. The project manager of that project, I mean, when she began at IE, I thought that she was going to be an anchor person on television. She was going to read the news or stuff. She had a kind of allure. Now she's very committed to menstrual to equality for women and to abolish menstrual poverty. So, and she's going to be doing that.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it does change the students too, because they learn how to communicate to completely different realities. Yeah.
So I can see a bunch of different career that these students will take throughout, like after this degree, they have so many opportunities.
Many career paths.
And many career paths. There's no really set one.
Yeah.
Amazing. So what would you give as advice to students that are studying the Bachelor of Communication Design right now, and people that are also interested in going into this industry, going into the communication industry and the film industry? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, curiosity is very important, and I hear quite a few students come to me and say, "Oh, I'd love to have a career in the audiovisual sector," and they haven't watched movies, they haven't watched series. You have to be a junkie of the products that people make, right? I mean, you don't get to work there unless you know what
is it about?
Different territories like to consume, right? It's true that all the same Disney movies make it to the top charts every year in the worldwide, but not the same have first position in all territories. So if you're curious, you learn those things, and what kinds of comedies work in France that travel, and what kinds of comedies don't work. Like Germans have great comedies, but nobody laughs at them except for them, right? And so do the Spanish, but there are some great comedies that may work in between. That kind of thing. You have to know the stuff. Reading is very important. And this is the part that makes me a little sad, is that more and more the younger generations have more difficulty reading, but reading great novels, reading books about and articles about the industry. I mean, you have to be curious. You have to be flexible.
Do you have any favorite literature to recommend?
Right now, I am hooked on this amazing Nigerian writer. I don't know if anybody knows her, Chimamanda Ngozi. I mean, she is, I'm praying for a Nobel Prize for her. She's in her early 40s, and I think that there is great hope for her. And there are amazing voices emerging from the African continent right now. I mean, the key prizes are being given to the Nobel Prize this year. He's from Tanzania, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, Abdul
yeah. And I haven't been able to buy that one yet, but
it was amazing. I read it recently.
The Bookie Award last year was given to, which is like the English Prize of Literature, was given to the translation, which is never done, English translation of a French novel. And this guy, Diop, Christian Diop, I think he's called. His novel is amazing, and the title in French is kind of lame, but in English is amazing. At Night, All Blood is Black. Really, I highly recommend. It's about African soldiers in the First World War. So it's funny because Latin America was the booming literature of the 80s and 90s, and sort of kind of subsided, and then Europe took over. And then there is this sort of amazing explosion in the African continent. It's kind of fun to watch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So to conclude this talk with you, which was super lovely, do you have a motto that you would like to bring to us, to carry us with us, to have a successful career?
I think beyond career, because career is only one part of your life, right? I mean, there are other things. There are your friends, your family, your travels, and the people that you encounter along the way. But I always, yes, I do, actually. And it's a good thing that you ask, because I love to share that one with you. I always say that rolling stones don't gather moss, right? A stone is always rolling, that mossy thing, green thing, that makes it slippery, doesn't stick to it. So you have to keep on rolling, and you have to keep on moving and doing things. Think again, if you're curious, you're always listening to something, reading something, researching something. And I think that's when you come to the third act of your life, like I'm approaching slowly, I am very grateful because my stone kept on rolling all the time, and I wasn't afraid to seize opportunities, even when it sounded crazy. Like, what, are you going to go and begin a new job pregnant? Are you going to, your baby's only 2 months old, are you going to open a new office with a 2-month-old baby? Or, my kids are adults now, and I think that they may have thought that I was a little bit crazy here and there in terms of how I pushed them and the many containers that we had in our lives, because my eldest lived in 6 countries. And lo and behold, she's now in São Tomé e Príncipe, and she lives in Germany doing a research project there, right? I mean, so she complained a little bit about living in too many countries. But I think that ultimately you have a fulfilling life, and others around you also get the example. So, Rolling Stones don't gather moss.
Beautiful, yeah. Keep on exploring.
That's right.
Yeah, being curious. Thank you.
My pleasure.